Let's go ahead and get a check of your top stories this morning. We are following an investigation into millions of your taxpayer dollars meant to help vulnerable Minnesotans.
Federal prosecutors now say 8 people are charged in what officials call just the beginning of widespread fraud tied to a state housing program. Let's check in with our Barrett Leone. She joins us live outside the federal courthouse in Minneapolis. Barrett, fill us in on details of this case.
Yeah, AJ, Shayla, this program, prosecutors say, was built on trust, and now it has become a pipeline for fraud. The 8 people charged are accused of stealing millions of dollars from a state program meant to help the homeless. And prosecutors say these charges are just the first wave of indictments tied to this scheme. Prosecutors say that defendants stole more than $8 million by charging Medicaid to help people find housing, but never did. This happened through Minnesota's Housing Stabilization Services program, which started in 2020 with an estimated annual cost of $2.5 million. But by last year, spending ballooned to more than $100 million, much of it now suspected to be fraudulent.
The level of fraud in these programs is staggering. Unfortunately, our system of trust but verify no longer works. These programs have been abused over and over to the point where the fraud has overtaken the legitimate services. I've been prosecuting these cases for years, and I've literally run out of ways to express what is happening in our state and in our state programs, and to explain the coming iceberg I see as we reckon with the fraud.
Investigators say that this case has overlap with the Feeding Our Future scandal, which was one of the largest pandemic-era fraud cases our country has seen. And in the wake of this, we're also hearing that some providers are feeling like they are paying the price for this widespread fraud, and we will dig into that a little bit more coming up in the next half hour.
Yeah, making the case a couple of bad apples ruin it for everyone else. Our Barrett Leone reporting in Minneapolis. Barrett, thank you.
As Barrett said, the Department of Justice compared that fraud investigation to another high-profile scheme that hit Minnesota. 56 people have now pleaded guilty in the Feeding Our Future case. It's the largest pandemic-era fraud case in the country. Dozens of defendants have admitted to stealing federal money meant to feed hungry kids. Prosecutors say they stole about $250 million from taxpayers.
Turning now to national headlines, the fallout is continuing to grow after ABC decided to pull Jimmy Kimmel Live off this week. Just last night, many of Kimmel's fellow comedians spoke out against the move. The controversy comes as President Donald Trump suggested TV licenses should be pulled from broadcasters who give him, quote, bad press. Kimmel was pulled off the air after remarks he made about the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. 2 major TV station groups, that's Nexstar and Sinclair Broadcast Group, they quickly announced they'd preempt the show. That's just hours after Trump appointed FCC Chairman Brendan Carr threatened broadcasters who failed to take action against Kimmel.
This is a massive shift that's taking place in the media ecosystem, and I think the consequences are going to continue to flow.
Nexstar is currently seeking FCC approval for a $6.2 billion merger. That's with another media company, Tegna. But the suspension has sparked protests and online calls for boycotts against ABC and its parent company, Disney. And on Capitol Hill, some Democrats are now calling for a congressional investigation into the FCC chair and Jimmy Kimmel's suspension. Now, the Kimmel news is provoking several questions about the First Amendment, also the right to free speech, and what this controversy might mean for the future.
Our Jonah Kaplan spoke with an expert in St. Paul.
At its core, the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution keeps the government from restricting your right to speak, write, or share what's on your mind. Raleigh Levine is a professor at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law.
You have the right to share and hear even unpopular, controversial views, especially political.
If I work for a company, I'm by the water cooler, I start criticizing the government, or I start taking a stand on a social issue among colleagues, can that company fire me for my views?
Yes.
Why?
Because they're not governed by the First Amendment. It may be bad for business, it may be bad for company morale, right? They may have reasons that they don't want that happening at their water cooler.
Free speech also isn't absolute if it incites violence or encourages people to break the law.
true threats, which are where you're actually threatening serious bodily harm or death to somebody with the intent of actually carrying it out.
In Jimmy Kimmel's case, Levine thinks what muddies the waters is how ABC, like CBS, works with the government because it operates on the public airwaves.
The issue here really is whether the government is using coercion or pressure to get private companies to do indirectly what it could not directly force them to do.
According to Levine, the courts could get involved, but that would be costly to whoever files the lawsuit. For the government to win the case, Levine says it would have to prove revoking a broadcast license is in the public interest. In St. Paul, Jonah Kaplan, WCCO News.
President Trump has wrapped up his visit to the United Kingdom. He ended the trip by meeting with Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
So the two leaders actually agreed they got what they wanted from each other in terms of money, pledging nearly $350 billion in cross-border investments. But on the topic of foreign policy, they're not on the same page. Starmer and other world leaders are preparing to recognize Palestine as an independent state. Meanwhile, Trump is not on board.
Another point of contention, Russia and Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is launching a new counteroffensive. And Russian President Vladimir Putin says he has more than 700,000 troops on the front lines. Prime Minister Starmer is pushing President Trump to do more.
We have to put extra pressure on Putin. And it's only when the president has put pressure on Putin that he's actually shown any inclination to move.
And today, Trump will speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the phone. We know TikTok will be one of the main topics of discussion, as well as trade between the two countries.